For those who are new, Jan, although you're not new to this process by any means, Jan, we do record our meetings as well. With that being said, I'm going to be all appropriate and put our introductory slide. We are now going to begin the meeting of the Minneapolis Advisory Committee on Aging. And I will turn it over to our chair, Angelique, to do the roll call.
Okay, so Thomas Weist, Flo Kastner, Melinda
Yep, we got you, Flo.
Ludzwazak.
Here.
Janet Court.
Here.
Hazel Tanner. Myself,
Here.
Angelique Kingsbury. Ellen Guche.
Goche here.
Goche.
I didn't remember either.
Ellen.
Don't feel bad, Angelique. I did not remember.
But I know, Ellen, we talk all the time and I said it. Okay, moving on. Sorry, Ellen. I love you. Beth Winnick.
Here.
And
We have a quorum.
We have a quorum.
Excellent. Actually, only Tom is absent. So I'll just briefly introduce Jan Sandberg. She is the vice chair of the Charter Commission's Engagement and Outreach Committee. Is that correct? Am I titling that correct, Jan?
Yeah, Education and Outreach.
Education and Outreach Committee, who is here to talk about redistricting. Jan, feel free to share a little bit about yourself and your role on the Charter Commission, and then the efforts of today and this particular subcommittee.
Thank you. As to myself, I was the vice chair of the Charter Commission, and this year I was lucky enough to find a great person from the Hawthorne neighborhood to take over, and she was nominated and approved at our last meeting. I'm up for renewal this year, and I am not positive I will be renewing. I've been on now for 12 years, and that's a good length of time. So, but we'll see. But anyway, I was involved with redistricting 10 years ago, so it gives me kind of an interesting perspective on what we're going through this year, which is way different than 10 years ago. And as some of you know, redistricting used to be done by a politically based committee. But 10 years ago, the citizens, a little over that, citizens voted to change the charter, turned it over to the Charter Commission, working with an advisory group, somewhat like yourselves, of 9 members who come from throughout the community, most of whom are a bit younger than we are, which is interesting. But anyway, just to get us started, you probably all know that every 10 years after the census, we have to redistrict the city of Minneapolis. This year is particularly necessary because we have had some huge shifts in population within the city. The downtown community just grew leaps and bounds. And while really the different wards didn't shrink in population so much as they didn't grow as fast. But that means in order to be fair, everybody gets an equal chance, we need to redistrict and make those wards and the park districts as equal as possible. Yeah, when I do my presentation, I usually use the word minority a lot. I understand that that's really not a term that's used so much these days, but unfortunately it's what's in the federal legislation. So whenever we refer to the Federal Voting Rights Act, we need to refer to minorities. And sometimes you'll hear people talking about single minority wards versus multiple minority majority wards. All that means is we have one ward in the city, the 5th, which a majority of the voters in that ward are going to be of a single racial minority, in this case, Black. We have 3 other wards, 4, 6, and 9, where white voters are in the minority. There are multiple minorities that represent, I think usually it's Black and Latino, but not always. There's a large Asian population, I think, in the 2nd ward. So anyway, so sometimes those terms get thrown around and I find them very confusing. We've been working on redistricting since last year. And we have to be finished by March 26th. That's in statute. It's, let's see, it's 60 days before the primary elections for the state and so forth. So even though the city wards are technically, we're a little bit different. We don't do primaries so much when we do our city elections.
Oh, have we lost her?
Sorry, Jan, you froze up for just a moment.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's odd. Well, I am up in Grand Rapids right now, so hopefully that won't happen. Park districts, is that better? Park districts are a bit later. And once again, the school district has said they will follow whatever the boundaries are for the park districts. And that's fine. I'm going to put something in the chat if that's permissible. It's some links to information that you might want to have. Let's see if I can do this. Okay, so the city this time has a huge website for redistricting, and it's got tons of information, background, legal stuff, links to our software, and other information. Yeah, I'm getting feedback too, and I'm not quite sure why it is. I have in a headset, and then maybe that's causing the problem. Anyway, this time you can draw maps, and it's very easy to do so. There are videos online that show you how to do it, and you literally paint them. I don't know if you've ever done mapping software online, but you literally are go in and paint a ward, and it will kick back information for you about, okay, what's the population and what you've done, what's the minority population, all the information you need to know, I think, to create those wards. And there's, we've had several mapping meetings, and those maps are online, and by following some of these links, you'll be able to find them. Not a whole lot of interest so far in the park districts, except by the park board, which is sort of interesting, but lots of interest in the wards. And I think we've had over 100 maps submitted by the public so far, which we've, some of them by our own redistricting group members. That's the charter commission sitting with the 9 advisory group members, some of whom are much more active than others, but that's the way it works in all councils and commissions, I think. Some of them a little weird. Some people like starting from scratch and drawing these odd, I don't know if they were just having a little bit of fun or that's what they really believed was a good idea. But in that same redistricting software, you can put in all of your comments. So some people just go in and say, I looked at this map. You've obviously ignored the East Harriet neighborhood. You really need to think about us. So do something different. And that's fine. That's a comment that we'll read and we'll take a look at. In fact, somebody's looking at that right now because that's a real comment that came up. Another comment that came up was don't split off the east part of downtown from the 3rd ward because that's not good for us and we don't really want to be in a different ward. And so we're looking at that too. Anyway, just the last bit here is we don't just draw these maps in isolation. We actually have a bunch of rules we need to follow. Some of them are well-defined and others are sometimes confusing. For instance, population must be plus or minus 5% of the average for the city. So for a ward, the ideal population is just over 33,000. We have to be within plus or minus 5% of that. Ideally, we're as close to it as possible, but sometimes that's not possible. The region must be contiguous. You can't put an area in northwest together with an area in southeast. That's just not appropriate, and that seems pretty logical. The length can be no more than twice the width, and that there are tools for actually measuring that. And that has come up because some of the proposed maps I was talking about are very odd looking and long, skinny, like they take the whole southern border of the city. That won't work. They have to be compact. Circles, great. That never happens because we're dealing with census tracts. So we've got bits and pieces, but they can't be this odd, bizarre shape. They should be compact. Communities of interest is something you'll hear about a lot, and that's not defined, but it's usually interpreted to mean ethnic subgroups, neighborhood organizations, those sorts of things where a community or business, so business communities, where people would have a common interest, so they should be in the same ward. According to the federal law, we have to draw the lines in a way that allows a minority, either racial or language, to have a fair opportunity to be represented. 10 years ago, we did that when we put together the 6th and the 9th wards. 6th was predominantly Somali, but there was a significant Latino population there. 9, it was Latino. And that was reflected in who they elected at that point in time. We have taken the charge that we are going to try and maintain the ability for those groups to have that sort of electoral power. You can't pack minority groups into a single ward. That is, grab everybody and put it in one ward, because oftentimes then you're taking away their possibility to affect other elections. Nor can you crack them too much, which is and I've seen this in some states where they take them and divide them into so many different regions or wards that they have absolutely no ability to elect anybody. Usually we want to go along major highways, 35W, big example, 94, the river, but that's not always possible because sometimes you just run out of people and you've got to go find them somewhere. And one thing that came up a few meetings ago was where current council members live. Technically, you're not supposed to consider that when you draw maps. Technically, it's supposed to be driven by all the population data and so forth. But I think that the group understands that it doesn't seem quite fair if somebody was just elected to sort of redistrict them out of their ward. So that's a consideration that will be looked at after the lines are drawn. We did it a little bit already. I think it was in Ward 4, where I believe Councilmember Vita was just elected and she lives right on the border. So, and that is pretty much all I want to say, except that link also gets you to the YouTube videos. Every meeting, like yours, if you're online, I believe, anybody can go and watch your meetings. Same way with all the work we do for redistricting. It's all online and it's all available for discussion. Well, you can look at it. We do have public hearings. 2 are coming up. These are very important. Anybody can speak. Everybody should speak if they have a strong feeling. Those are on, what did I say, the 4th of February, and now I forgot the other one. It's later in February. There could be more. Those are the 2 mandated by law. We have to have 4 total. We've already had 2. And then we are still map drawing. So what you'll find is that we're having another meeting next week. You can watch it. You can't participate. That's pretty much for the redistricting group, but you can send your comments in beforehand, and every one of them is read by every member of the group. We've been very adamant that people should do this. Let's see, and in February, it's the 4th and the 24th. I should have remembered that. So those are the public hearings. There might be an additional one. Our goal is to maybe have approval by the first week of March, but we'll see because stuff happens. And then, of course, they have to draw the precinct lines, which is where your voting places are. And that's always a little contentious. Anyway, I'm happy to answer any questions. And I can also give you my email at the city. If something comes up after the meeting, I should probably do that. But if there's any questions, let me know. It's kind of boring.
Yeah, just thank you so much, Jan. For committee members, I can send all of this, including the dates and the links and stuff, in an email. And for Flo, I will print that off and get that to you as soon as possible. And we're sure it's the 4th. At one point, it was the 9th for the first public hearing.
Oh, you're right. Let me double check. You're right. It is the 9th. The 4th is a different meeting that I have.
Right. Okay. All right. So yeah, I will get those dates and all the links and stuff to you.
And yeah, we try to go, I think one of those might be at 7 and one is at 4. We've kind of bounced the times around because people have told us that sometimes 4 o'clock is not a good time if you work. I don't. So I'm old, so I get to not work. But for other people, I can see that could be a problem. So I think one of them is that, yeah, is later. They're all on the city's website. One of the links I sent you, the first one, will show you how you can sign up for redistricting notices. Your committee, I know, has notices that go out to people. They can sign up for them. Ours is the same way. It's done on the same city website as I believe. But okay. I'm trying to put my email address in here, but I'm not typing very well today. Oh, that's good. That'll work. Okay.
Does anyone have any questions? Comments, concerns?
Okay, I guess I had a question. It sounds
Sure.
like you've changed the original, what was originally projected for the 9th ward. I happen to be from the 9th ward, and it was running all along Lake Street, all the way to the river there for a while.
Yep.
And apparently that has changed.
Yeah, we had to redraw because the 9th ward the population is too low technically.
Okay.
So, and I wish I had, oh shoot, I should have been able to send you, I can send you a link for the map that shows you the current map of what they're talking about, if that would be helpful. It's in this, that you'll see it's in this weird software. It's called District R, and that's the software tool for drawing the maps.
Yeah.
You can take that map. If there's something that you'd like to be a little bit different, you can take that map and actually change a few things in it and submit it as your map. Because this is all built on building on maps.
Yeah, I looked at that and it seemed a bit complex because I don't want to. I know there's a lot of things to look at, and I'm not sure that I'm
okay. But
yeah.
if you have concerns, please. There's the first links I sent you. There's a way to submit a comment. Please do that, and it can be specific. It doesn't have to be on the whole map. You can say, I live in the 9th ward and I have very concerns about the line running along such and such a street. Please take a look at that. Perhaps you want to, and you might suggest how you would feel comfortable with it changing. That's absolutely fine. And a lot of people have done that. I would please encourage you to do so.
Yeah, I have to look at it again and
Yep,
see.
that's fine.
Yeah.
Nope, that's absolutely fine because we've had every ward. Sometimes people are unhappy because their neighborhoods have been split. Sometimes we've had some, what was the recent one? Oh, George Floyd Square came up at our last meeting and there were concerns it should only be in one ward. That's going to be tricky because it's at a major intersection. And one of our requirements or guidelines is run along major thoroughfares to split the wards. So I'm not quite sure how that'll happen, but if you have thoughts about that, you should please let us know. I'd appreciate it.
Anjali?
So I just want to clarify my understanding of the importance of redistricting and what the process is. So the census comes out.
Yep.
And is taken. And then we look at the different groups and neighborhoods, correct? And
right.
Then the importance of redistricting is so that the funds, resources are allocated correctly to those districts in need, and then also the council members that are assigned to those districts.
Okay. For our city redistricting, it's technically not so much about funds. That's a huge issue for the federal government when they set up their districts. That's the way I understand it. Ours are about electing the council members in the wards. And that's why, like, for instance, numbers are so important. Sometimes a difference of a few hundred doesn't seem like a big deal, but once you get the differences between the ward size too far, it can be weird. It's like, if we had in the 7th ward, one person lived in it versus perhaps in the 3rd ward, 40,000 people lived in it. That would not be fair. That just gives way too much power to a single person. And you can see as the numbers get further and further apart from an ideal mean, it's kind of making someone's vote count a little bit less in a way. The bigger issue, I think, with the city is you kind of want to be in a ward or park district where the people have some of the common interest to yours. They care about some of the same things. They want to influence policy in a similar way. So they want their council member, whoever they elect, to go to the council and push for their interests and concerns. Now that the council has been, the model has changed, we've got the legislative executive model. Those council members won't have direct authority on the city departments, but they create the legislation, the ordinances, and they set the budget. Those are huge issues. So you want someone who's going to speak up for your interests there, because that's going to make a big difference. Park district's a little bit weirder. They elect 6 specific districts, but it's like the school board, I guess. Then they have 3 at large. So that's a little bit different. So 3 that are citywide, and it works a little differently. Like I said, we're not getting a whole lot of interest in park districts this year, and I'm not quite sure. I mean, there's so much going on in the park district, but I don't know. Anyway, so yes, you're right. We have to do it every 10 years and make it fair.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thanks, Jan. A question that has come to me from some folks is how redistricting affects these school districts. Can you touch on that?
Yeah, the school districts, in the school district in Minneapolis is sort of a special beast, a little bit like the park district, because the park district extends outside Minneapolis boundaries. We have some parks that actually are in other cities, parts of them. The school district is sort of the same way in that it's considered not strictly just a city organization. So they have special rules, and they get to set their own boundaries. In the last, I should have looked this up, 4 or 5 cycles, they have said, we will use whatever park district boundaries are, because they both have 6 districts and 3 at large. So they told us earlier this year, I think a couple of months ago, they communicated with the chair and said, we will accept the park district boundaries. So we're not going to do anything special on that. And that's fine. Works for us. But we don't have to technically run anything by them to get their approval. And technically, we don't get the approval of the park board, although there's something, it's in the charter and maybe state law, that we have to present a final draft map to them, which would be sometime in February. But they just can comment on it. They don't approve it. Same with school district.
Thank you. Hazel?
I have a question. I was sitting here wrestling in my head. Why would the park district boundaries change?
Population changes. So we have
But wait, hold up. I guess in my mind's eye, a park is a park. And so, is this apples or oranges that I'm kind of thinking about? I mean, I don't understand why. Explain what is the park district?
Okay, a park. Sure. There's 6 park districts. Each of them elect their own representative to the park board. And that's the board that makes all the rules they set ordinances, and they allocate funds to all the parks within the city. Those districts' populations have changed, and they've changed some of them pretty significantly. Let's see, I think, District 1, which is kind of northeast Minneapolis across the river, its population's increased by almost 12%. So it's out of whack to the others. There's a couple like 5 and 6 that, relatively speaking, are smaller. So we're going to have to adjust the physical boundaries for those districts so they have enough people in them. Because right now they don't. And that's what some of the discussions are about. So if you looked at now, I should have mentioned, one of our rules also is you change the boundaries as little as possible, especially for the park districts. You start with the original boundaries. And now from there, how can we adjust them and tweak them so that we have enough people that meet those community of interest requirements and so forth. Park districts came up early as an interesting one because we had a set of boundaries for them. And then somebody pointed out that it was going to split a park. That's not a good idea. So we went back and changed all those.
I guess this is clear as mud. I'm still not getting it. So to me, it sounds like you have to do overlays of maps. If you got
Right.
part district and then you have the city wards. I mean, is that all the same? I mean, I'm
No,
getting
they're
lost in
different.
this.
Totally different. They don't have to align in any way whatsoever. And that gets complicated when you're doing voting precincts. But we do the wards and the park districts totally separately now. Sometimes that's not popular with some park district commissioners would prefer to be aligned with certain council member, but we can't take that into account.
Okay, so if I look at a map with wards, cut out maps, and I look at a map for park district, they'll look totally different. They're not, it's not an
Yes,
overlay. Okay.
totally different. And if you overlaid park district on wards, you'd find in some cases a district, wait, I should go back and check that. It's possible for a park district to totally contain a ward, but it's not likely. No, it is likely. Park District 2 will totally include 5, but it's not, there's still bits and pieces that get shaved off. So the argument we hear from the park district commissioners sometimes, but I'm going to have to deal with multiple council members. Oh, the horror. But that's the way politics works. They probably have to deal with different number of state representatives too. So, and they seem to be able to do it just fine.
Okay, that clears it up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jan. Cute kitty, Angelique. Thank goodness my puppy didn't see that. Can you explain like the end of the process then? So once you're done with your final map, kind of go through what the next steps are, such as it goes to the state looks at it, how and if, like what level they can weigh in and do anything like that.
Well, the good news is this for people who've ever been active in politics, the good news is the state has absolutely nothing to say about it unless there's a court case challenging the map and it goes to the courts. But the state government, legislature, the executive, there's nothing in it. State statute and the charter govern the process completely. The next step after we approve a map, both of them, the park district and the wards, is now they go to the city clerk's office, who has the unfortunate task of figuring out the precincts. Because as you know, obviously some of you probably have been election judges, you know, you get one commissioner and one city council member in your precinct. You don't get the vote for 2. So all those precincts have to be drawn in a way that takes those odd lines, including the state lines. That's for representatives, senators. Well, federal's not an issue in Minneapolis. As you know, we have one federal person. But for the others, the states, those precincts have to be drawn in a way that makes sure there's one person for each office in there. And it gets complicated sometimes, very complicated. So I'm glad it's not my job. Anyway, but that's after that, then it comes back for final. It isn't approved by the city council. It comes back for final approval by the charter commission. If somebody was unhappy, they can certainly file a lawsuit with the district court. And I believe that happened not last time. 10 years ago, we were good to go. I think 20 years ago, there was a lawsuit and it went to district court and it finally, I think it settled in favor of whoever drew the Minneapolis maps. But last time, it wasn't a problem. This time, it would be difficult to see how it would be a problem because the process is so incredibly open. I mean, people can watch every step that's taken. There are no map drawing meetings being held in private like they were before. They're all out in the open in public, and you can hear the discussions about why lines are being moved. And frankly, this time it's very data driven. We have a young man, he's a biostatistics graduate student, I believe, and he's been doing proposing a lot of the maps. And he is the most data-driven person I've ever seen. He's pretty fun to watch him in action when he's talking about why he's doing what he's doing. And he's willing to listen to people, but he's literally looking at, does this block look like statistically other sets of blocks? I think it's community of interest, but it's done on a different way. So then after that, we're good. The elections are going to be held. You know, we have city council elections in 2 years this time because of the state law that came into effect a number of years ago. The mayor won't be up in those 2 years. Then the council's up again, I think. Yeah. And then after that, then everybody's on the same cycle for a while. So that's it. That'll be it.
Yeah, thank you, Jan. Yeah, important to note, as you're talking to community, my committee members, that it is only a 2-year council cycle, and then they will be up for re-election. However, the mayor will not be.
Correct.
And it'll be another 2 years where they'll all be, as Jan mentioned, back on track. So, and it can change, the redistricting can change what that 2-year election would look like and who would be eligible to run and to run for which geographic area, which ward. So,
right. One thing I should mention, talking about the election cycle, just if anybody's interested, there is a proposal that came to the Charter Commission to put the city on even numbered years, take them off the odd number year elections and put them on either even number years with the state elections or the federal elections. None of that's been, they just said even years. I think and there's actually a committee meeting going to be held next week if you want to listen to. They get kind of boring, but why that is, why somebody wants to do that, what's the pros and cons. I think mostly what I'm hearing, it's because people really want to more turnout in the city elections. I used to be on the school board in Bloomington decades ago, and we switched our elections while I was on the board, and part of it was to get a larger voter turnout. And that may be one. Of course, it'll be complicated because, as you know, then you would have the ranked choice folks here from the city and the non-ranked choice folks over here for the whatever the state or other elections were. So I don't know where it'll go, but if it's something that interests you, you might want to check it out. It should be a fun discussion.
Thank you, Jan, for your candor. Does anybody have any other questions? And I did notice we had someone join us by phone with a 508 number. Do you want to introduce yourself? If you're comfortable with doing that? Or not?
Okay, I just unmuted myself. My name is Peggy. I had been interested in the Committee on Aging, and it took me a while to get logged in, so I didn't have time to wait for the Teams app to load, which takes like 10 minutes.
Yeah, no worries. No worries.
But I live on the north side. I lived on the south side for many, many years, and I've been following the redistricting stuff very, very, very carefully. I thought about applying to be on the commission. So, yeah, I'm going to send in a bunch of comments that I have from your last meeting. So,
thank you.
Absolutely. We love comments.
Is there any other questions for Jan from our committee members? No. And as I said, this is always an open communication, and if something comes up that you're thinking about, or you get a piece of information where you're like, whoa, that changes how I want to view this, you just go ahead and let me know. I will connect you with Jan, or you can go directly to Jan, or as I mentioned, I'll be putting out the links where you can put your comments, thoughts, ideas, concerns, all of that on their email or the map drawing, or however you feel most comfortable with participating. So, and as you're talking to your community networks, please definitely share with them, the opportunities to weigh in, not only just with the public hearing, but throughout the whole process until its final stages. So, and one last mention. So this advisory committee is made up of 9 people from the community. It's a fairly diverse group, young too, as Jen mentioned. And, it kind of covers a lot of different age groups. But it is the Charter Commission alone that has the final vote on the maps. So I just wanted that to be pretty transparent.
Yep. No, you're right. And the Charter Commission does outweigh the advisory group. There's 15 charter commissioners. There's only 9 advisory group. It's hard to imagine that a final map would get to the Charter Commission that a majority of them hadn't
appreciated,
comfortable with. Yeah. Sure. So, and frankly, if you listen to the mapping meetings, people are very collegial. It's definitely people. Now, sometimes people have odd thoughts, but that's okay. You know, something is more important to one person than to another. That's going to happen, but it's not a group issue. It's more individual. So I don't see any possibility of having it be very contentious at the last step. But then I've been wrong about things before. So never know.
Well, thank you, Jan.
And thank you for letting me come and talk to you all, because I think it's really important we have a variety of people aware of what's going on. Anything you can do to get the word out would be most appreciated.
Yep, for sure, we'll do. If there's no further questions for Jan, you're more than welcome to stay on because we've got a little bit more business to conduct. We have to approve our minutes, but I wanted to be respectful, and I also knew that I believe Beth has to hop off pretty quick. So I just wanted to make sure there was as much participation in this particular conversation as possible.
Thank you.
You have to forgive me, I'm just getting over laryngitis, so if I sound weird, that's why. But if there's no more questions, I think we can move on to, I had announcements just so we can kind of have the flexibility to bring different components of our conversation up for folks who want to talk about certain things. I know we talked about the letter with Trellis. There's a few other things I wanted to talk about, like appointments and our new council members that are seated and things like that. So Angelique, did you want to start off with announcements and add anything, or have something you wanted to bring to the agenda? Nope.
No.
Okay. Does anybody else want to have an addition to the agenda? So the announcement that I was going to make has to do with appointments and reappointments. Some of you are up for reappointment for another term. Some of you have ended your last term, but the way our creation language, our committee creation language is what we call it, and our bylaws are written, we're able to stay on until we find a replacement. I know I've asked and leaned on folks to also actively recruit folks. We have a lot of empty seats. Majority of them are in a lot of our new council members' wards. So I will be figuring out how to connect and talk to the city council about the work that we all do, our aging action plan. I have a meeting to finalize the report finally next week. So I'll be really excited to get that engagement report out to you all so you can share far and wide and put it on our website. But yeah, I will definitely be reaching out individually to you. And if you do have a new council member, I highly encourage you to connect with them as soon as possible, sooner rather than later, and to, introduce yourself, talk about the committee. I trust you all. If you want talking points, I'm more than happy to sit down with you or give them to you, but you all are very well versed in the work that this committee does, as well as some of the concerns our aging communities have across our city, et cetera. If anyone has any questions for me right away about that, let me know. Okay. And then, so Angelique, if you want to take on adopting the minutes.
Everyone in agreement of the minutes?
Yes.
Aye.
Aye.
All right, sounds good.
No disagreements? And to Flo's point, definitely there's a lot of changeover within the city, not only just our council, but with our department leadership and stuff. So I'm going to be sitting down with my management to talk about like what that looks like with the work that our committee is going to be undertaking. I know next month I want to launch into the actual action plan and the recommendations. So I'm really excited to get this report finalized so you all can look through some of the conversations that are different communities. I did take a very different approach this time to on how we engaged our elders, I specifically focused on our BIPOC and LGBTQAI plus communities. So there will be recommendations that are specific to each community that may not transfer over like across citywide. But there are also definitely themes and concerns and issues that came up across all of our aging committees, our communities. So that'll be our agenda, is to dive into what that process looks like, what this committee's role is with that. I know some of you have already talked to a little bit, like with our digital divide stuff, which was a huge conversation piece with our aging communities across the board, is our older adults and the digital divide and the role that the city and the county and that our partners here, even in this room, like Beth and Helen and Angelique, with the work that you all do outside of the committee and how we can support getting our older adults equipped. Because as we know, the pandemic's just crawling along, keeping up pace, right? So that being said, does anybody have any questions for me about the recent mandates that came from our Minneapolis and St. Paul mayors regarding masks and vaccinations? Nope. Okay, beautiful. Well, I'm not a person that is all about meeting.
Hey, I have a question.
Sure.
One question. Do you know if they will accept, like I took a photo of my vaccination and booster card, and so I have it on my phone. Can we use that at places? Or do we have to bring the card themselves?
I always recommend the card. That's kind of being worked out, my understanding. I do know places that have been actually requiring proof of vaccination even before the and or a 72-hour negative COVID test, well before the actual mandates were in place. And those places did accept visual proof. The important thing is to have your ID, because anybody can show a picture of a vaccination card, but it needs to match your identification, right? So if you're, I wish I could give you a better answer. I would actually go to our health department's website.
It was just posted, and I wish I could remember where I saw it. There was just a list of ways that it will be accepted, and I think it was a link through the Star Trib this morning that said photos would be accepted.
It was, and there was also,
and I know in New York photos
an
were
app.
accepted, and in LA photos are accepted.
Yeah.
So,
and there's also an app available.
Yep, there sure is. It's called Docket. Yep, there you go, Jan. Thank you. Jan just put the app name in the chat.
What's the name of it?
Docket. Yep, DOCKET. It is actually the Minnesota Health Department, State Health Department's app. I actually have it. It's wonderful. It makes it a lot easier than scrolling through 6,000 photos of puppies and grandbabies and stuff to find your vaccination.
Okay.
So,
thanks.
Yep, you're welcome. And it's very, very easy to use. You give very little information. They've got you. I mean, it is government, so they've got you down. Is there any other announcements? One announcement that I will make is our Community Connections Conference has been pushed to May 21st. So I will be sending out save the date. This year we are working on actually elevating elder voices in our theme. So yeah, I'll be having conversations with this committee on what that looks like for us and our role in the Community Connections Conference. As of now, it is in person with some, of course, requirements. I don't know if the vaccination requirement will still be in place but we are definitely planning on that now, as well as masks, the mask requirement to attend. It will be a little bit of a hybrid event this year. The exhibit hall and the lunch will be in person, but like our opening keynote and our closing ceremony, as well as some of our breakout sessions, listening sessions, those will be live streamed. So you will have the ability to participate that way. So that'll be interesting. We've never done anything like this before in my department, but we're like game on, right? And who knows, by May, maybe we'll have like Godzilla coming through Minneapolis and just taking us all out. I just, at this point, I'm up for anything, right? So,
What is that date? What is that date again, Christina?
May 21st.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I will send that all out to you as well. So you can send it out too, because right now, shortly, the exhibit registration for Exhibit Hall is going to be opening up. So if you could share that far and wide, that would be wonderful with your networks. And I think I'm going to be talking with Trellis. I am going to be talking with Trellis next week as being a community partner, like a sponsor in collaboration with us. So we're definitely working on what that looks like for our community's elders and how to elevate their voices. We've already talked to a couple groups for our immigrant and refugee community elders to celebrate them and what that looks like. And because May is a lot. It's Older Adults Month. It's Latino Heritage. I don't know if it's Latino Heritage Month. Of course, it's Cinco de Mayo. It's American Indian Month, which is different than the October one. Like May is just everything. May is like the month to have everything. It's probably National Pizza Month, right? So, so we thought we would just kind of grab onto that. And the theme of our conference this year is Forward Together. So it's trying to really just talk about the resiliency, and I hate to use that term, but just we as Minneapolitans, how we have all come together to try and work through what we've been through the last few years. Yeah, go ahead, Hazel.
So you said May has a month for everything. So for this May 21st, is that a day where you're not going to have conflict with other large things coming together?
No, not that we're aware of. All right, Beth, I see that. Bye, Beth, thank you. Beth had to cut out. She had an engagement at 2 o'clock. No, we've kind of shuffled through our dates. Really, there's not a specific day in May. May, it just seems to be a month that celebrates a lot of community and different factions of our communities and celebrates our diversity. So pushing it to May, at first there was a lot of concern that because of all of these other things going on, but the more we talked through it, it seemed like it might be a natural to actually have it in May because May celebrates so many of our communities. Thank you for that question, Hazel. Any other questions, comments, concerns? Flo, how you doing there? Miss Flo? Yeah, I think I'll unmute her. Well, I'll figure it out. Lastly, I don't want to put you on the spot, Melinda. Did you want to give an update on the trellis?
Sure. We've been on hold waiting till our new council members have been seated, and Tom was in a little recovery. You know, he's been on that subcommittee, so I hope to pull us together. I think it's Angelique and me and Tom, and I'd like you to get involved too, Christina, if that's possible, because then you can set us up in a meeting like this.
Sure. Yep. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, and I gotta make sure I understand the protocol for open meeting law. I'll reach out to staff before I do that.
Okay.
I have a feeling because we're not a quorum. If there's only the 3 of us, like you and Angelica and Tom,
right.
That's not a quorum.
Right.
So I'm not sure that we need to publicly notice, but I'll make sure.
Okay. That would be great. Yeah. And then I thought we could figure out what we want to do and who the letter goes to and what we want to say. So
yeah,
let's do that.
Yep, that sounds excellent. Okay,
Okay.
we got a plan. All right, well, it's 2:00. If there's nothing else, we can have Angelique adjourn our meeting. And we got a half hour back of our lives. I actually have a meeting that I was like, I'm gonna be super late. Sorry, I don't want to be disruptive, and now I'll be able to go to that meeting without being, well, I'll be disruptive no matter what, but.
I've got to do better. And we would like to adjourn this meeting. Would all like to adjourn? Someone say aye and second.
Aye.
Sorry. I'm
No,
brilliant
you're
in
good.
other
Opposed.
areas. Just not
No, you're
Yeah, you see
super
that.
good. Like I said, you know, our committee is super important, super valuable. I wish we could write policy, but we just recommend policy. So it's not like we're handling the city's budget or anything. So we can, not that we need to be sloppy or anything, but we got a lot of leeway.
And I would like to thank Melinda for taking the initiative to write the letter and send the letter out. And it just seemed like, for me, December was just kind of a flurry, a blur.
Yes.
I was not present for December. So resetting, coming back and revisiting that and recommitting to the letter. So thank you, Melinda, because it's really been Melinda who has taken the initiative to move it forward. But I will be there with you in the meetings to come or what's next to come.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that, Angelique.
Yeah.
Yeah, and thank you all. I think our meetings are fun. Like, I would rather watch and hang out in one of our meetings than some boring, like, you know, taxation or something, who knows, right? We talk about the real goods. We talk about the real stuff.
That's right. So,
And I'm working with Nick to figure out how we have a conversation with our advisory committee on people with disabilities, like what their work is looking like, what our work is looking like, and how can we help each other out in a line? Like where are there some commonalities that we can support each other? Because if there's an opportunity, like if they're trying to take care of some policy, because they do handle a lot of policy with the ADA compliance. And if there's a way that we can provide any type of support with that, I think that's a value add. So maybe they don't think that, so we'll leave it up to them, but I would like to extend that olive branch to that committee for sure. All right, cool. That being said, I'm gonna hop on my other meeting.
All right, you guys stay
All right.
Me
safe.
too.
thank you all. Keep staying alive and healthy and
Yep,
healing.
happy New Year.